Good evening and welcome to the Azeroth review. Apologies first of all, there's lighting again. I don't know what happened. Like, it was all perfect. I got the new webcam, everything was fine for like 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden the lights went no, shadows now. Shadows is the thing, and I've no, like, it's dark outside. It's got nothing to do with outside. That's another little problem for me to sort out during Easter. Anyway, good evening. Welcome to anyone who's new. Say hello. And this is just where we can talk about anything you want to talk regarding World of Warcraft. I suppose one topic of discussion potentially will be the dazar'alor troll racials, which, again, are a big screw you to raiders, largely, particularly of certain master classes like paladins. So that one may come up as well. Actually, just while earlier on today, I was reading something which is a little incredible. Actually, this isn't first hand, although the person did reply to confirm it anyway. So community manager Bornak quoted as saying, this is a bit interesting, says, "We will not be ignoring the community. That said, I don't mean to dodge the question." I don't actually know what the question is. This is like copied from somewhere else. "But I would prefer to let our actions speak for themselves as we work through these changes, because ultimately you and the rest of the community are the ones who will judge just how much we are communicating and listening to you." I still haven't seen any actual communication though, that's the thing. Am I missing it? I might be missing it. It's possible I'm missing it. I've not been able to see anything. But anyway. Is this actually... But anyway. Well, we shall discuss that anyway. Then the other thing is, I suppose, dazar'alor trolls. I mean, the main issue with that... You've got a few nice racials in there. You've got the swooping pterodactyl, which is, I guess, like demon wings, only it's you can't just do it all the time for gliding purposes. You've also got, what is it now? The heal. There's like 100% heal, which is quite nice, actually. That would be quite useful. But that's, you know, that's on a decent cooldown. But, you know, I think still quite useful. That would be the useful part for raiding. What's less useful for raiding is going to be something like the Embrace of the Lower, where you pick some boon, some buff to some aspect of your character. It might buff your healing, for example, or your movement speed, or, you know, your damage in attacks or something like that. But you have to choose it away from where you're going to be. You have to go to a shrine. And then you also have to there's a 5-day cooldown as well, which is also really exceptionally weird. I am actually just going to try something here because I'm a little bit perturbed by the fact that nothing... Oh, it is working. You're just being very quiet. I see. And then the other things would be increasing golden. That's just one of the passive things. Those are the sort of racials I'm quite happy with, because they're not going to make people want to choose a particular race for their class or make a particular class strong because they happen to have some racials that are particularly good for that class and another one falls behind because they're not actually as great for their class and things like that. But they are going to get into a bit of shit. Oh, hi, A&T. Like, usually people say things. This is good morning, Iron Templar. It's just really weird. I've just been jabbering on for 3 minutes and like no one said anything. I was thinking, am I alone here? Am I actually just talking to myself? I do talk to myself, however, I have to say. But there you go. So yeah, the dazar'alor trolls and the Culturan humans, if anyone cares about them, are coming out next content patch, which is supposed to be, well, it's soon now, isn't it? But these racials are going to be really annoying. I mean, it's just, I don't understand as well. I do not understand why it is that they keep doing things to frustrate raiders. It could be seen as, yeah, talking to yourself can be seen as a sign of madness, or it can be just frank admission that you are the only intelligent company you ever come across. But that is, of course, not true while you are here. But yeah. But I can't tell. I have no idea. I had no idea. No one was saying anything. It was quite perturbing. Like, I'm not on... Actually, another type of person that always talks to themselves, I suppose, would be actors. They do it all the time. No, narcissism, I think, is the last thing that I would worry about. I need to go onto this screen. What do I think of the new loot with unique abilities in next raid? Not much, I think, is the easy way to say about it. It's... Yeah. I mean... There's like an evolution in process, isn't there? It's like a way of moving from loot tables where people go, oh, this raid's coming up, these are the bits of loot I want. It's all about, it's not really about fun when it comes to like serious types of play. It may be fun for some, I'm not saying it's not fun for anyone. But for the ones who play the hardest form of the content, no. No. Well, it is an evolution. Evolution doesn't always mean, isn't always good, you know. Remember, evolution has produced the duck-billed platypus and the kangaroo. I don't think either of those are particularly effective. But, no, it's literally just a way of saying you are never ever going to get the set of loot that you want from this raid. So do you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to raid forever. You're going to have to keep... Doesn't matter how quickly you clear this content, you're going to have to keep doing it because you only care about loot. Because that's their attitude. They think we only care about loot. But, you know, and some do. But there are some who just see it as a tool for progression. And when you are making it difficult to, if not impossible, to reliably acquire, you are frustrating their progress. So yeah, I don't think, you know, all of these things, like, if I go through now, if I was still raiding, which I am not, if I was still raiding, the following things would have really pissed me off about BFA. I'd still be doing it because I'd be enjoying the raiding. So you had, first of all, having to do PvP before the raid came out as one of the gearing options. Too many gearing routes, and you had to do all of them, of course, before your raiding came out. So the PvP aspect of it would have annoyed me. You know, you've got the various problems with the Azeroth gear, which are being improved, but they don't really stop it being a problem, I think, for raiders as well. Now you've got this situation like, okay, not everyone's going to roll a Zandalari troll, but if you were, you've got this problem like, so let's say you're a healer and you go for the one that improves your healing. And then someone says, oh, I've got too many healers. Can you come on your DPS spec? Yeah, sure, no problem. Oh, now your racial's no use. So that's really annoying. And then this, again, making loot less and less reliable. Just as well I don't have to get angry about these things anymore. Raid forever is better than trying to get Titanforge. Well, but Titanforge is still in the game. They're not removing Titanforge, are they? It's on top of it. What time exactly in WoW history did it stop feeling like a second life to you? The instant I stopped raiding. Literally the week after, it was like, oh, I've got, you know, I didn't put my feet up or anything because there's always, like, if this is the amount of time in the week that I have, there's always this much that I want to do. So but I noticed that, oh, I'm doing more of the things that I wouldn't have ordinarily been able to do. So it was straight away. But it was up while I was raiding. It was always felt like, even, you know, there were some guilds where, you know, that I was in were more serious than others. In the ones I was in, Legion, were less so. But it was still, there was still a lot of time in there, because even if the guild doesn't require as much of you, as a serious player, you'll still spend a lot of time looking through logs and things like that, and talking to other people who've been doing these encounters and doing also, you know, lots of research yourself. So there was so much time spent on raiding. Happy Tuesday, Razor. Have I beat up any? No, I haven't even played the game for this week. I don't. I'm almost not playing at all. You know, I sometimes spend a bit of time on the PTR. Like, I can't even get, when the Zandalari trolls come out, unless I actually start doing something, I won't even be able to play one. You know, even if I'm not that bothered anyway, but if I wanted to, I won't be able to play one, because I don't have, I've got like two of the achievements needed for it. There's like 4 things you need to unlock them. Want to try making a level 60 twink? No, I've never been interested in twinks. Nothing is fun with twinks. Anything, you know, at the moment the level cap is level 120. For me, anything below level 120 is not really that much fun. It's not, you know, I'm not saying anything below that is completely devoid of fun, but it's not that much fun. And the game for me at the moment is not fun enough for me to spend time on the character I have at 120. Or at least very... I mean, obviously, when you've not played it for a week or so, then you go, I should go on for a bit. But seriously, at the moment, the only thing keeping me in the game, like, apart from you guys, is the fact that I'm interested in where the story's going. You know, I still have, like, I almost call it an academic interest in gameplay mechanics. Because, you know, although I've sort of stopped raiding, I haven't stopped being interested in, like, class design and other things like that. I'm interested in the game, but it's almost now like I'm an academic studying the game rather than someone playing it. You know, it's like sort of retiring from a professional sport but wanting to go into the study of it, like coaching or whatever. That's how I sort of feel at the moment. Same boat, you're capable of mythic raiding, and yes, you can be asked to do all the prep that goes into it now. WoW has died on the day a shard was born. Oh, no, I don't mind the sharding. Any interest in other upcoming MMOs? Not sure. Still not sure about Ashes of Creation. I mean, there are other MMOs I'm all right playing on a casual basis anyway. I'm not sure of those. Just, I mean, bear in mind, I mean, there's like other things as well. There's other hobbies that have just filled the void. It's not like I'm thinking to myself, ooh, I haven't got anything to do now. Other things have come along. You know, Warhammer has come along. I'm going to go to a tournament in a few months now. What else? Oh, yeah. I mean, the other into politics. I mean, I started another channel basically a year ago, but I just like chuck stuff on now and then just for the hell of it. And then since about Christmas, I thought, I'll just do this properly, and that's growing now. That's actually going to be bigger than this channel in a few months by the looks of it. Actually, probably no. But maybe in a year. So things fill the void easily enough. I have no issue trying to find things to do. I don't have to look very hard. There's more things I want to do than I ever can do. That's why whenever people say, oh, you should play this game, or you might like this game, I'm like, no, I already have too much. I don't need to go looking for more things. Because the worst thing that could happen... Because sometimes, you know what I've thought to myself? Obviously, so I'll get onto these questions. Obviously, like people have asked, oh, you know, so obviously I'm not doing as many videos. I've got another couple of videos I should be doing this week. But at the end of the day, we've got this. We've got the mailbox. But the mailbox can only exist as long as I put up all the videos, because it relies on comments. If I don't put any videos up, there's no comments, then the mailbox would go. And... Because what used to be, I mean, I'm still doing the same videos as I suppose I used to, but in addition, I used to do like guides and things like that. I don't play anymore. So there are some guides I can still do. I still take a real interest in Ret Paladins. And obviously I'm still talking to the theory crafters and stuff like that. I keep myself up to date with that. But beyond that, no. It's so I have sometimes thought, well, maybe I should just every month get a new game, just do some videos on a new game. You know, I could have done something like Anthem or something like that. What was the other game that's come out recently? Can't remember. Doesn't matter. Didn't play it anyway. But then part of me thinks, what if I really like it? Like, it might sound weird, but my plan, if I ever did that, would be get a game, play it for a couple of weeks, you know, stream maybe, then do a series of videos on it, and then the next month get another one. And, you know, I'd almost be hoping I didn't really like it that much. But what if I did? Then I've got another thing on the big pile of hobbies gathering dust. Anyway, let's go on. You don't know, some question this, but why Blizzard make trinkets from Raid like from BOD, which are useless or worse than others? I don't get its philosophy. I think now there is a bit of a problem with trinkets and indeed gear like that, but trinkets most especially, because most other gear can essentially just be a stat stick. Even weapons can effectively just be a stat stick. You don't have to give them special abilities. Obviously, we've got the Azeroth traits for that. Sometimes weapons have a special ability on it as well. But trinkets are special abilities. Sometimes you have stat stick ones as well, and sometimes they're more effective. But, you know, they have to come up with trinkets with cool ideas. Now, it used to be easy for them because expansion would launch, you'd initially gear up in dungeons, and there'd be some trinkets in those dungeons. Then you'd go into your raids, and then you'd be using the trinkets from the raids because they were better. And then a bit down the line. So then down the line, you might find yourself with a raid trinket that actually works in basically the same way as one of the dungeon trinkets, but it's higher item level, so you use that. They don't have that option anymore because you can get the dungeon trinkets at high item level. So they have to come up with completely unique trinkets, and it's not an easy thing. And also with each passing expansion, you know, they also want to try and make them different to the ones that have come before it. They don't always succeed, of course. So I just think it's more and more difficult. And it's the sheer number of trinkets that exist. You know, there's loads. You know, if you look at the loot table of a raid, it doesn't even matter if there's only like a few bosses in it. Like Uldir, you know, had fewer bosses than Battle of dazar'alor. There's still loads of trinkets in it. If you look at for all of the classes, not just your own, loads of trinkets. And that's just one raid. And then there's going to be, we've got Battle for dazar'alor, so that's the second raid. There's the next raid coming up, but that's only a short one. But still, it's another raid. Then there's going to be a Shire's raid. Then there's going to be whatever comes out in 8.3. So it's like 5 raids, albeit you could almost call it 4.5 raids. A lot of trinkets. And then you've got all your dungeon trinkets as well. And if they bring out any new dungeons, well, that's probably going to have some trinkets in it as well. And also there's trinkets from World Quest. And there's all these things, and they can all Titan Forge. And so they've all got to be unique. So I think that's where the problem comes. I think it's a product of their philosophy to make sure that we can never get our best gear. You don't think WoW is a great game story-wise since we've become the champion? Yeah, well, see, for me, I've been playing through the Warcraft story since 1990s. Does that sound right? Must be then. Yeah, 1990s. It's a long time. And with the promise of some sort of near ending to it, then it's a bit tantalizing. It's a bit like, you know, watching, I don't know, let's say you've got like Game of Thrones, which I won't be watching, by the way. I'll only be watching it when it comes out on DVD because I don't watch telly. So I'll have to try and stay. Actually, I won't care if someone spoils it for me. Whatever. But I will try and avoid spoilers. And you know, I put off for many years watching it, and people say, "Oh, you should watch it. What you should watch it." So I eventually did. So I've watched the other series now, and it'd be like getting through to the penultimate episode, watching that and going, right, that's enough for me, and not watching the last episode. Why? So I'm going to stick around for that at least. The political channel is called A Different Bias. I upset people on it. It's actually, well, I don't intend to upset them, but it happens anyway. So yeah, I I pick fault with the way the storyline is told. There are technical issues I take with it, but the overall story is interesting enough, and I want to see it concluded. Trinkets that give abilities from other classes, such as Rogue gaining access to Fell Rush or Shaman's getting kidney shot. Good idea or bad idea? Bad idea. Not only is it just, I think, annoying, you potentially create balance issues. You give him... I mean, Blizzard's argument for pruning our abilities is we had too many abilities. You know, and it caused balancing issues. Well, there's plenty of other things they do that cause balancing issues. So what are they doing? They're coming up with a system of giving us more abilities. And all just because they're abilities that exist on another class. I mean, that also counters their homogenization argument that all of these abilities should be unique to this class or whatever. So no, on no level am I a fan of it. But I accept that there'll be some people who are a fan of it and they'll like that. And that's all right. I mean, it was okay when it was like symbiosis. That was okay for druids, except for the fact that it sometimes encouraged you to bring a few druids along if there was something really good that they could give to someone else. So, and things like this, like if someone ends up with an ability that's going to be really good in a fight, you're encouraging people to take that class like you always are with abilities. You don't want to be Bolvar or even close enough. Oh, yeah, in terms of your own character, yes, I agree. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm of the same mind. I quite like the idea of just being the mysterious stranger that comes into town, saves the day and buggers off again. And who was that masked man? Yeah, but, you know, at the same time, I also understand from Blizzard's point of view that if the same masked Avenger keeps riding into town time after time after time, eventually some people are going to notice them and start giving them more important missions. It would be better from a role-playing point of view to remain anonymous, but it makes less sense from a storyline point of view after all this time and all these events. So, you know, I don't criticize Blizzard for that, even though it's not some... there are some things with Blizzard about the game that's changed that I've not liked, but at the same time I accept that it's an inevitable result of certain other things that they've done which have valid reasons. And, you know, so I don't try and be critical then. I've got enough to criticise anyway. This expansion experience has been all over the place. Some things you like, but majority as you're scratching your head. The storyline is all over the place. The storyline is all over the place. I mean, the last time there was a storyline this all over the place was Vanilla, but in Vanilla it was good because it gave you, basically it gave you a taste of all the different aspects of Warcraft lore. It brought you up to speed for those who weren't familiar. Because you've got to bear in mind as well, some of the lore being explained to us in Vanilla Warcraft, World of Warcraft that is, were not actually in the 1, 2 and 3 games. They were stuff that had appeared in books and novels, you know, which I read at the time. So, you know, it was actually very good. Whereas with every expansion, they've always had an overarching story theme. Maybe at the end of it, they start the story for the next one, to like as a bridge. That works. For an expansion, that works very well. Especially for such a linear game as World of Warcraft. And it is still linear now, even though that's not generally the model anymore. So, in that situation, yes, I think they should have one story, not trying to sort of garble it together like this. But, I mean, they keep saying things like, oh, just wait to see how it plays out and then you'll see it'll all come together. The issue is that if this was a book, people wouldn't do that. They would stop reading it. It's a little bit like my students when, you know, obviously they're at the age where they're applying for part-time jobs, and also I'm trying to get them ready for applying for careers. And I say to them when they're writing their CV or letter of application, don't assume that whoever's going to read it is going to read the whole thing. If they get bored after the first paragraph, they will throw it away. So you've got to keep people with you in order to get them to the end. And Blizzard, you know, it's a law of storytelling. You have to. This is the reason why I used to curse the name J.K. Rowling. You know, I mean, again, Harry Potter was something else I was late to the party on. You know, I had some friends who read Harry Potter. They kept saying, oh, you should read Harry Potter. I just looked at it, you what? boy wizard. I ain't read that shit since I was a kid. And then the film came out, and they took me along to see the film, and I thought, this is all right, actually. All right, I'll read the books. At this point, how many books were out then? 3 or 4, can't remember. So, I think it may have been 3. So I read those, and I thought it was really good. But the problem is, as you read through the Harry Potter books, what you notice is, especially when it got they got bigger and bigger. I mean, to begin with, the first few you can read in one sitting, no problem. Then they got bigger. So then it's like, I've got to sleep. But what would happen is I would be there thinking to myself, right, I'll read this chapter, then I'll go to bed and I'll carry on reading it the next day. And you get to the end of the chapter and it's like tying it up and you're thinking, yeah, this is a good place to end. Then on the last page of the chapter, she then goes and says something that you're going, hang on, now I want to know what happens next. So then you have to read the next chapter. And she does the same bloody thing at the end of every chapter. And again, Blizzard need to learn these things. That's how you write. You don't assume that people are going to stick it through to the end in the hope that all the threads join together in a satisfactory way. If they don't keep you, then they've got no right to expect you to stay watching it. I mean that's what makes me scratch my head. You know, these sort of things. Why aren't we on the edge of our seats? And I think if they wanted to tell the Horde Alliance story, fine. But it should have been, instead of like the Donald Duck cartoon at the start of a film, well, they don't do those anymore, they used to. They should have had it run throughout. The Old Gods is sort of there. It's not like they haven't started it. But that's the really exciting thing. They should have had more of that. Because that's the main story of this expansion. Lore has been destroyed by newer expansions. What was set in stone has been obliterated and rewritten. Oh, yeah, yeah. The stoned versions of the lore has not existed for a very long time. You know, it was almost... I mean, yeah, it baffles me. Because it's almost like, you know, in a lot of games, like AAA games, they're produced by companies who do not own the intellectual property of the world that they're creating. So, for example, EA with Star Wars. So that was Lucasfilm. It's obviously Disney now. Lord of the Rings Online, and you know, obviously the Tolkien estate has that. Well, even Elder Scrolls Online is not produced by Bethesda, but ZeniMax Online. So the companies making these games have to treat the source material with respect. They can't go chopping and changing things wholesale. Little bending of it here and there for the sake of narrative you get away with, but no breaking of it. Whereas Blizzard, they own their own IP, so they're completely at liberty to breach as much of it as they like. But my thinking would have been, surely such a company would have had respect for it. And, you know, they're the people who own the IP are the ones who want to protect it. And yet they don't with Blizzard. They just run roughshod over it. And some of the times when they do it, you think there wasn't even any payout from it. They just did it for the sake of doing it. It didn't even benefit anything. So yeah, and it was quite funny when the Warcraft Chronicles started to come out, and it said, you know, it was an acknowledgement that there was an acknowledgement that they've been messing about a lot with their own lore, which is always pointless because, you know, whenever anyone asks me, which every now and then some people do, you know, I want to read some Warcraft books, which one should I start with? The answer is the latest one, because if you go too many years back, the books you will be reading won't actually... They might be enjoyable. Many of them are enjoyable. Most of them, in fact. Well, I haven't read all of them. But they won't be telling you anything about the Warcraft lore because it's changed. It's a madness. But yeah, so the Warcraft Chronicles basically came out and they said, right, we're going to set it in stone now. This is it. And already it looks like... I'm not going to say they've definitely changed some things in it, but there are some things of it that don't seem entirely compatible. Not to, I would, at the same time, like being bent very, very much, to almost to the point of breaking. I don't think they've broken it just yet. But anyway. Are there any of Gul'dan's original Death Knights left? And how would they do versus Arthas? So there's two types of Gul'dan's Death Knights. When you talk about the original ones, you don't mean the ones where he just put Orc spirits into Stormwind Guards, do you? Do you mean his Warlocks? In which case... hang on a minute. What about... Oh, what was his name? He was in Warcraft 3. Hiya, Jelly. He was also on the Broken Shore. They put him on the Broken Shore as well, didn't they? The one who tells Maiev about what happened to Gul'dan when he tried to go into the Tomb of Sargeras in Warcraft 3. Was he? He wasn't one of the original Death Knights, was he? Depends which one you mean, though, because I say there's now... There's multiple versions of Death Knights. Death Knights have become different things throughout. I mean, to begin with, they weren't... Well, they were just his Warlocks. And then they were Orc Spirits. You would think the Lich King would win. You would think so. But we haven't seen Bolvar in action yet. But the thing is, when you say, are there any of Gul'dan's original Death Knights left? The first thing that comes to mind really is, are Gul'dan's original Death Knights even acknowledged in the current lore? I don't know anymore. That's the thing. Things that you think you know about the lore may not exist. It may just be that they haven't... Give you an example. Last expansion in Legion, you know when they had that short audio play thing where it talked about the story of Turalyon and Illyria when they'd left Draenor. So in that audio play, basically in Legion, we learnt that they changed what Nathrazim are. So it was described as Nathrazim weren't actually demons at all. They were actually a race of people like Draenei or Eredar, who were corrupted and turned into demons. And that's why that one that ended up infiltrating my Paladin Order Hall, he was one who had changed into a demon and then changed back. So that explained him. Now, until that came out, that little story, we were carrying on thinking that Nathrazim were just a race of demons like we always thought they were. Because that's what they originally just were. Cleverer demons. But no. But they didn't tell us that until it had been revealed at that point. You know, we were all happily carrying on thinking we knew what they were doing. So there may be something else like that. There might be something else that we think we know. And then Blizzard bring out something that's like, oh no, we've changed it now. And until it's out and we see the change, you know, we don't know. And this is what makes it very difficult to try and follow the stories as well, because you never know at any point when something's going to massively change. It's a bit like in Labyrinth when the David Bowie character, the Goblin King, keeps changing the clock. It's like, you don't know where you are. Not really fair. Bolvar would beat Arthas. Well, he didn't beat Arthas the first time, did he? Let's be honest. That's why he was chained up above him. I mean, granted, he wasn't in his best condition then. You still remember the DK Vengeance bug from Kata? Emptied battle. I don't remember that then. I may not have been playing it then. I only started playing Kata at the end. And if I'm going to be honest, if I come back to the game for the last tier of an expansion, I probably don't rush into doing PvP. I don't rush into doing PvP in any expansion. Certainly wouldn't have done when I had a whole expansion to do in one tier. So I'm not familiar with that then. Or if I was at the time, I've forgotten it. You meant as the Lich King? I don't know. Very difficult to say. I mean, surely they've got the same power. I mean, Arthas was sat in a block of ice for about 5 years, honing it. You're not familiar with the story now. You haven't played WoW for a while. But do they really change the story often? I don't know about often. But the thing is, when they do change it, it can be some very big things which have a massive chain effect on all sorts of other things. And it's the fact that they do change fundamental things to the point where you wonder what else is different. It's like you can't be on firm ground anymore because you don't know. You don't actually know it. There's technically no such thing as a lore master. Poor old Nobble. Well, I say poor old Nobble. I suppose every time they do change it, he gets to do some more videos on it. But the poor guy must sometimes just think to himself, I know nothing. I'm a complete charlatan. I'm saying all this stuff because I've got it from books. But at the end of the day, do I know that any of it's true? Who knows? So I don't know whether, does he like it or does he not? I wouldn't. I would hate it if I was, you know, proper into the lore as much as someone like him is. One had love, the other only wanted power. Well, yes, but that doesn't make them any. Sometimes the one who wants the power most has a greater reason. When it comes to a fight between relatively equal matches, it does tend to go to the one who wants it the most. And people who want power do tend to like winning. So Bolvar hasn't cut his own heart out, intentionally making himself weaker. Well, we don't know what he's been doing. Does love make you weaker? Not necessarily, but anger does not make you stronger. It works for the Incredible Hulk. He swears by it. Story in video games is always rather subpar, especially the structure and how they tell the story. Just replayed Dragon Age Origins recently. I'd give it 5 out of 10 for story. Just simple it is. I don't know. I think these days, you see, I mean, I think they can be all right. If a story only exists as a narrative for a video game, then yes, it's going to be relatively straightforward. It doesn't mean to say it's not engaging. But if you do what Blizzard do, and have done for many years, and you get people to write novels based on your material, your game narrative, then actually it can be amazing. And it could be amazing. And it is in many ways. It's just they keep screwing you by saying, oh yeah, that book you bought years ago, yeah, that's not valid anymore. Or, you know, it could be something like, oh yeah, there's like one page in that book that's not valid. Which page? I don't remember. So, which modern add-ons do you think will be game changers or fundamentally alter raiding in Classic, if any? Oh yeah, there'll be a full suite of add-ons. First things first, you are going to need raid frame add-ons. I'll be honest, I do not understand how people these days raid with the standard raid frame UI. But what I will say is this, in vanilla, even that didn't exist. There were no raid frames. Do you know, this is so stupid. I've probably talked many times about the fact that during vanilla, as I was getting ready for proper raiding, you know, there were an awful lot of things I didn't know about the game. It's quite embarrassing. But here's the thing. I remember being in UBRS, right, Upper Blackrock Spire, which is 15 man. This is before I joined a raid guild. I'd never been into Molten Core. So I was going into Upper Blackrock Spire. I think it may have been my first run there. First or second, can't remember. And I remember getting a heal from a priest. I can even remember his name, Fricker. And I thought, what the hell? How? What? because they weren't in my party. All I could see was who was in my party, but there were 3 parties. Now, you could open up a tab and see who was in each group. Obviously, that's for the raid leader to organise groups. But you couldn't see the frames, the health frames, on the screen. So I couldn't work out how the hell they knew to heal me. I thought this is some sort of magic. Of course it's magic, it's a fantasy game. You know, but raid frames, you know. So raid frames add-ons will definitely need to be in. People, of course, will still want their damage meters. That'll be in. Threat meters may well be a thing as well, because threat was definitely a thing. You could sort of go by your damage, but you want threat meters, really. So, yeah, there's going to be a few add-ons that are going to be useful in there. I don't think there'll be much need for, like, a rotation helper, because it'll say something like, press 2, press 2, press 2, press 2. And that's not just for frost mages either. So, you know, people will raid with a full suite of add-ons. And when you're going into pugs, I remember one add-on that was really good, because it could be totally different add-ons these times. What was it called now? Loot Hog or something? Basically, what it did is, you know, obviously when you're in a pug and you were 10 man in a dungeon or something like that, just for loot, which you could do, you would, you know, people would roll on an item. So then to work out who rolled the highest, there was an add-on that would you know, do all the rolls and put them in order. It would also point out if someone had tried a sneaky second roll as well. So that was quite handy. Till he met Thanos, where was the anger that then? The evil villain with a tragic backstory intended to elicit sympathy whilst being a monster. I have no sympathy for them at all. Arthas was a spoilt little brat, should have known better. In fact, he did know better, and he still was an arsehole anyway. Make a rotation add-on with the same voice line. Well, that's what it would be. Obviously, you'd have to put your ability on 2, otherwise it doesn't really work. But that's all it would be. Arthas was a saint. You're having a laugh. The first time, I think I remember, we're going back a bit now. I haven't actually played Warcraft 3 for a while. Even the first time we came across him, he was a dickhead. And that was when he apparently was good. He was a paladin. Oh, he was a dickhead. He had no respect at all for Uther, as far as I could tell. Morning, Stormsend. Or it's evening from my point of view. It's going to be so cool to play the campaign again from Warcraft 3. You could do that now. There's nothing to stop you doing that now. Are you waiting for Reforged? Do you need the Reforged? Get that bird that Homer Simpson uses when Skyping from work to press the button. Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Actually, there was what was it now? I think it was Preach some years ago was telling a story about a warrior in his guild, and everyone, like a tank, and everyone thought this guy was amazing because he never had problems with threat or anything like that, blah, blah, blah. And one time, as he was describing it, one time the boss moved for whatever reason. I can't remember which boss it would have been. It might have been Twin Emperors, where they'd move across anyway, and it done it at a bad time. And this tank didn't go after his boss. It didn't do his boss swap, and he was just stood there doing nothing. And it turned out that he'd gone AFK for a piss, and he just had like some sort of rotation script or something, just pressing his whatever the hell, Sunder or whatever. So that's what and they found out that's what he just basically did. He would just go in there, hit his script, and that was that. You know. Oh dear. You'll instantly install the BAM add-on 165 crit. Oh no. Do you know what? I remember exactly where I was as well. I have such ridiculously vivid memories of certain things in vanilla. I remember observing my very first crit of 1337. I was in Silithus at the time. I remember it very distinctly. You think WoW's biggest story problem is that too much happens off screen and they would have a smoother development process and better content if they follow the novels. I agree with that. I think I've said this before. There is too much of the story in the game that doesn't make enough sense unless you've also read the novel attached to it. I think that's absolutely true. It's the same again with that audio drama as well with Terralion and Illyria. You know that the cinematic between Illidan and Zera. That cinematic is way more powerful if you'd listened to the audio drama before seeing it, because obviously it's mirroring the same process, only it has a different ending. So you miss out. You absolutely miss out if you only get the story from playing the game, and that is, that is disappointing. See, what I would like is if the novels just told the same story in more detail, rather than different ones that are part of the narrative but not told in the game. Anyway, but yeah, I agree with that. It says, yeah, because murdering thousands in Stratham and Lordran makes you a saint. Oh, and your father. Yes. And then came back to nick his father's ashes. Although he didn't care about the ashes, did he? It was the urn. I remember that phrase because I remember being a bit shocked at that because I didn't really associate this with Americans. Because it had that scene when he goes back to get the urn that is... he knows there's a special urn because he needs it to transport Kel'Thuzad to what is now Elfland. And Uther stands there saying, when he says he wants this urn, he says, that urn contains your father's ashes. What did you want to do? Piss on him one more last time? I thought, Americans don't say piss, do they? Those Lightforged Draenei aren't exactly the good guys, having watched that Magar scenario. Fanatical and being given orders by the Naru. Yeah, you'll see. Well, that's the thing that's come in Legion, isn't it? This idea that the Naru are not necessarily as benevolent. I mean, when I talk about, by the way, Warcraft Chronicles have already started to bend things, not absolutely break it. One of the things I'm talking about is the fact it explicitly describes Naru as benevolent. And it's not from the point of view of someone else who believes them to be benevolent. This is in the matter-of-fact presentation of facts in the first few pages when it's describing the cosmic forces. The book specifically describes Naru as benevolent. Whereas actually, after Legion, you're thinking to yourself, I'm not really sure that they are. And this is when I started to draw links with Babylon 5, because it's very much like the Vorlon and the Shadow. One of them has a much kinder disposition than the other. But they're both, when it comes to it, using, everything as their personal pawns. And they're going to have their own way. Convert or die doesn't seem like a choice the good guys would offer. No. No, it doesn't, does it? What about the gear score grouping crutch add-ons like OQ or Raid.io? Should or will they be broken in Classic? They certainly shouldn't be used. But, and this is another big thing I'm going to have to say, with all these people wanting the Classic experience, you are going to get different community tools than actually existed at the time. Because you've got to remember, the community has grown more sophisticated over time. It's not going to suddenly stop being sophisticated because it's playing the earliest iteration of the game, albeit in a abridged format. So yeah, I can see something like that appearing in it. Item level doesn't really matter. Well, you tell that to anyone who organises a puck. And also, you've got to think of it this way. Because the classes were very much more basic, There wasn't as big a ramp up in the power of gear across the expansion as exists now. However, because DPS, for example, was relatively straightforward for most, there were some little sneaky little tricks for like Fury Warriors and stuff like that that allowed you to elevate yourself. Generally speaking, it was relatively straightforward. As a result, people may feel that the gear is more important. Now, they would be wrong, because there's a huge limiting factor to DPS in vanilla, and that, of course, is threat. So, in actual fact, a skillful DPS was not one who could kick out the most damage. It was the one who could sail closest to the threat line, who could do the most damage without going too far over. Anyone could easily do more damage than the highest damage dealer in a raid. The issue was doing it without pulling threat. Now, healers, different matter. Healers, obviously, yeah, you want your good gear. Because, you know, a heal can't be too strong. That being said, there was a skill in healing as well, which, you know, if you try and imagine you've only got so many healing spells and a lot of them are direct healing, there is a great deal. And there's far more people, 40 man, you know, in a 40-man raid. Although you've got more healers as well. But still, if you accept the fact that a dozen of your healers are boneheads, you put extra responsibility on yourself to keep people alive. So there's, you know, I'm not going to say there's more skill in healing then, but I'm going to say a great deal more awareness of where people were and triage was needed. You can't wait. You're going to play it again. See you later. What, you're going to play it now? It's not out yet. Don't believe the books entirely. I don't believe anything entirely. I'm missing stuff here. Hold on. If I had to choose my paladin's race best only off the mount, what race would I choose? The dwarf's mount is cool, but I don't like the horn thing. Don't like that. I'd choose human. The human mount's the coolest mount. Draenei would be in last. No, actually, hold on. Yeah, Draenei would be in last placed. If they followed the novels, it would also give the player some distance away from the factions without getting hold of them. Yeah. There's no good or evil, only certain groups' agendas and the impact they have on the world. I don't really think that's true. Are you trying to come up with the morally grey argument here? No, of course there is good and evil. It's just that a particular faction may not be entirely good or evil, that's all. You're super excited. You're going to buy a new computer soon and will be able to do Classic. How strange to think you're going to need a new computer to play Classic when we played Classic on potatoes back then. But there you go. And a small 14-inch cathode ray tube monitor. Have I? Oh, it won't be on this computer. I need to try and find a screenshot of... oh, actually one of my earliest videos would probably have it on. Where, hold on, let me just try and... Sorry, let me just try and indulge myself here. Right, while I'm doing that, let's have a read. The upper end of raiding will be sophisticated, but the general player base... No. The general play... Well, I say that. The general player base that uses the internet, I don't just mean to play the game, will want all the add-ons, I assure you. But we will see. Time will tell. They'll still be scrub news wiping on level 20 outdoor quests. Oh, yeah. People will not at all be prepared for the difficulty of certain leveling. You know, a classic case is behind Darkshire. Basically, there's the Worgen area, and there's a quest where you had to kill a load of them, night runners or something they're called. And if you're on your own, what you do is you pick off the patrols, 1s and 2s. But there were also groups of them. They what you did if you were in a group. I can see what's going to happen. People are going to go into the group. Oh, I need to kill 9 of these. Oh, there's 4. I'll get them. Dead. What happened? I could absolutely see that happening, yes. Yes. It's going to be quite hilarious. The good guys or good deeds are always written by the people who win. The Naru... I was a cynic. The Naru and Draenei keep winning, so they always say the people that beat were the bad guys. Do the Draenei keep winning? Do they? I mean, their very name means exiled ones. Being exiled, I'm pretty sure, is the ultimate loss. Or very close to it. I'm not really sure I regard Draenei as winning. Yes, he did say piss. The urn holds your father's ashes, Arthas. What were you hoping to piss on the one last time before you left his kingdom to rot? That's it, I remember. Yes. And then he said he didn't know what was in the urn at all. Didn't care. If Zera hadn't died before Sylvanas' sister absorbed the Void Naru and had told Turalyon to kill her, would he have done it? No. I don't believe so, no. You've got to bear in mind, there's that particular little speech that, what's his face? God, I hate it when my brain does this. The boneheaded leader of the Draenei, Velen, all right? When he's talking to Turalyon when you're walking back through that nice town in Argus, and he explains that Zera hasn't really told him everything. So there you've got a situation where, you know, he's going to be... Oh, no. He's going to be told a few truths by... Because Velen is also a servant of the light, remember? But he also knows that, you know, he doesn't just slavishly follow their every whim. And there's no suggestion that Turalyon would either. He reveres them. In Legion, because he didn't necessarily know any better. Doesn't mean to say he thinks they're all arseholes now, but I don't know. He wouldn't do the wrong thing because a shiny light told him to, I don't believe. You're playing now with Retribution Paladin. You would love to improve your DPS because, in your opinion, 10 to 12 in Heroic Bod is weak. 10 to 12 what? Hold on. Oh, right. K DPS. Right. You made a lot of simulation. Your DPS should be around 19k. That 19k is probably a patchwork fight. Like, stand on a training dummy. What you need to do, where should you search your mistakes rotation maybe? Well, okay, so I have my guide video. The best place to go, in all honesty, is the Paladin Discord, which is called Hammer of Wrath. So join the Hammer of Wrath Discord. And in there, there's loads of channels, but one channel is called Ret FAQ. If you go there, there's links to other guides as well, website-based guides, which will also go through. In some of them, like Skeletor's guide, is in massive amounts of detail, so you could try that. And then they also do every few weeks on a Saturday a live thing. Oh, a jelly! Thank you very much. They also do a live thing where they say they invite you on the server to submit logs, and then they'll analyse those logs to you. Although I suspect they want raid logs. But yeah, just bear in mind, you know, there's a certain amount of practice just required. You really, in terms of doing effective DPS, you have to think you've got to be able to play your character relatively instinctively. So you need... That'll include setting up your UI and just muscle memory with actually just practicing on the training dummy. Practice like you know, think about it this way. Professional footballers will practice the same move hundreds of times over their professional careers, tens of thousands of times probably. But, you know, in a session, they may practice the same thing hundreds of times. So you need to sort of do the same thing yourself. Just practice on training dummies. That's why they're there. Until you're super comfortable. Because then what happens, once you're super comfortable with what you're doing on a training dummy, in a fight, in a situation, because you're not focusing on what you're doing with your class, you can then focus on opportunities for better DPS with the situation that presents itself to you. Like you'll suddenly have better awareness of the environment in the raid and the mobs and all the rest of it. So that's what you need to develop. And that is what I will be losing by not playing it to come out. Because just like because Because like my WoW thing just went like that. You know, I started off in a bog standard, reasonable guild, but bog standard. When I joined a better guild, I got better because I was having to perform at a higher level. Then I joined a better guild still, right? And then unfortunately, that was the best guild I ever joined. It's sort of gone. It's sort of done a roller coaster since. Sometimes it's gone up and then down again. Every time you step down in terms of, you know, the level that's needed, tend to get weaker because you're not practicing enough at a certain level, you know. But that's what you need to do, really. Morals don't matter. Oh, dear. Wash your mouth out. If it benefits your group, no matter how bloody the action is, it can be seen as good or benevolent. So evil or good doesn't matter because it doesn't matter if you're dead. Of course it does. There's no such thing as dead in World of Warcraft. Keep getting up again, don't we? How many times must I have died? Not as many as the gnomes I've killed, but still a fair few times I would have thought. The whole mission of the old gods is Lovecraft is to free you from your human morals so you're free to enact your will on the universe. The whole mission of the old gods is to bring about the entire destruction of the universe. Not its ruin, its actual destruction. Quite how one Void Titan is supposed to do this, I have no idea. They don't really seem to have covered that in the Warcraft Chronicles. But anyway. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find something. Oh, that's going to take me a long time, though. Unfortunately, in the video manager, I can search for my most recent video, but I cannot search for my least recent video. And I've got loads of videos. Send the Draenei... Oh, hold on. Well, the Draenei only ran from their own kind, but we really don't know much of their backstory. They were attacked... We know lots of things about their backstory. We may not know how much of it is still true if Blizzard have changed it again. They were attacked and killed by the orcs. No, 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 no. They were already Draenei before they came across the orcs. No. Let me explain. So first of all, they were all living happy as Larry on Argus. Then along came Sargeras, and he convinced Kil'jaeden and Archimonde that he was going to bestow them with great power. Bellum was not really convinced, and he took a load of his people away to escape, and Sargeras then twisted all the Eredar. So then they became Draenei because they were the exiled ones. Then they landed on Draenor, which is a strange thing to call it because Draenor is a Draenei name meaning the exiled place. So they named it. Never mind. So then they crashed there. That's what Oshigan is. That's where they went. And then they made friends with the orcs. You know, they were okay. They made friends with the orcs. But then Kil'jaeden found them and was naughty. And he persuaded Ner'zhul by pretending to be orc ancestors, the spirits of orc ancestors, that they were up to no good. And stoked resentment in them. And so then you know, they tried to kill them. Well, they killed a load of them. And then they escaped again, this time to Azeroth. So, you know, eventually, it took a while. Hi, Rhoda. Thank you very much. Now, hold on. History is a series of lies agreed upon. Go on, who said that? That's a quote, isn't it? Have I heard of that quote? Such cynicism. Really, it's making me blush. You were more meaning... Hold on, sorry, I keep missing. This is what happens when I go off on one. I then miss the next comment. You're more meaning like with human history, it's always written by the victors. See, I was talking to someone about that today or on my channel. The thing is, that's an old saying, and it used to be true. history is written by the winners, the victors, because when very few people could write, so only so many people who could chronicle anything, and generally what you did is sacked the libraries of the vanquished. But nowadays it's not. Nowadays anyone can write anything. They can write their truth. We're in this post-truth world now, and the history seems to be written by whoever is the most reactionary on the internet. So, history can be written by the losers these days. It can be written by anyone. It's who believes it that determines who's actually written it, because everyone writes their own version of it, which is nice and balanced, but not all versions are necessarily agreed upon. Destroying the universe doesn't mean erasing it. No, that's what they want to do. It specifically says in Warcraft, here's what they want to do, right? What happened was the universe was created as this like clash of light and void, and the universe is like light and void. The void don't like that. They want it to be void. So they want to destroy the universe and start again. They want to create a new universe. That's what it says in the Warcraft Chronicles anyway. Of course, anything that Blizzard write, they can change. But that is, at the moment, what we understand. The real question is, what will they do with it once they've got the Titans out of the way? They'll just... Apparently, here's the thing, right? Load of Titans, not actually strong enough to do anything at all, apart from beat each other up. Okay, they can kill old gods, but they can't do that without hurting Azeroth. Or at least they couldn't. Maybe now they can. Who knows? But apparently, if the Void corrupts even a single Titan, and Azeroth is supposed to be the most powerful ever, bargain, then that one Void Titan can destroy the entire universe. Apparently. There are very sketchy details on how this is to be achieved, it has to be said. Genghis Khan wasn't very popular with all the people his horde slaughtered, but he created the Silk Road and the trade and sharing of tech that followed, sped up civilization. Yes, but people still didn't like being killed by him. They didn't benefit from the Silk Road, did they? Well, if the Nightmare Realm is anything to go off, I prefer the Titans' plans, just saying. I'm not really sure the Titans have a plan anymore. That's the issue. They seem to have disappeared. Not forever, because we've been told to keep our eye on the sky. That little red star, we've been told to keep our eye on that for the future. But that could just be them pissing about with us to make us think, oh, they're going to bring the Titans back one day. And then the next expansion comes out and it's on something else. It's like, they're going to bring... Oh, maybe the next expansion will be the Titans coming back. And then it's not. And it's like, maybe the next expansion. Believe nothing until I see it in my eyes. Actually, that's not entirely true, but still. Okay, Poison Girls, time to destroy the internet. I'm not sure it's really vulnerable anymore. I think it's here to stay. We're going to have it tattooed onto us one day. Could you imagine as well, actually, with smartphones now, when you think back, you show a modern smartphone to someone 20 years ago, it'd be absolutely incredible. Think what there's going to be in 20 years' time. Think how archaic our smartphones, well, particularly yours, not mine, because I don't get the latest ones anyway. Smartphones will appear in 20 years' time. It's ironic because through the old gods, the Void Lords have technically created more life than the Titans ever have through the curse of flesh and other means. Yes, this is possibly true. However, we do have to weigh all of that against the fact that they created gnomes. No, lock themselves away to lock in Sargeras. Yes, but what's they haven't got a plan. They're just sitting in a circle. They didn't even really have a very good plan, it has to be said, when we were fighting at the Argus Soul. Their plan was to sit in a semicircle and watch us die. And they all went loopy when we died. That's not... None of them got up and thought, hang on, we're going to have to finish this off ourselves. No, there was none of that. You're not good with the lore, but is it the Titans behind the light? No, no. No, Titans are not beings of the... They're part of the light and shadow, like lots of other things. They're arcane. So the Titans are not on the side of the light, or... well, they're obviously not on the side of the void. They don't like the fact that the void is trying to corrupt their own thing. So that would make them... You know, I suppose the attitude of the Titans towards the light, for example, would be the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But they are not beings of the light. They're beings of light and shadow. And on the little map... Oh, do I have it here? Did I delete it? On the little map... right, I might need to try and find it. There's... they're actually nearer to the void end. Oh, no. Can't find it. Bugger. Got it. I was trying to remember what I called it. Right, let us consult the map. The map of many things. Where's my little pointer? Oh no, my little pointer is not the topmost thing. There we go. Better. So, Titans are over here. This is the void. This is the light. Everything in between is a mixture of void and light. I don't know whether we're supposed to imagine that things on this side are more void and this side are more light, or what, but these are where the Titans are anyway, in the arcane end of things. Why are the Shadowlands with death and not the void? Hold on. Well, they may not be. Just because they're geographically on this map there. I don't know whether the geography of this map is supposed to be telling, to be honest. So it may just be that the Emerald Dream went there with nature, which does make sense. And then this one, they just wanted the opposite. I couldn't tell you. I unfortunately have not had the opportunity to interview whoever produced this and ask them questions, because I would have questions about this map. Absolutely. See you later, Dark Souls. So yeah, you've read all the WoW Chronicles and played Legion. In the Chronicles, they kept saying the Draenei were moving from planet to planet to escape Sargeras and kill Jaina. Yes, that's correct. So they first of all went from Argus to Draenor, and then from Draenor to Azeroth. Actually. Hold on, no. There were places they went before they landed on Draenor. Were there? There may have been. But at least they went to Draenor, and then from Draenor they've gone to Azeroth as well. They may have been to other places. I forget now. I can't remember what might have been the lore at one time and what is now. Then they crashed and could not get the ship out. No, have you seen it? It's like buried about 200 feet in the ground. They landed their rocket on the point. It's the worst emergency landing I have ever seen in my life. And I do not know how anyone survived it, if I'm going to be completely honest. Put it this way, if How It Should Have Ended ever did a parody of the landing of the Draenei onto Azeroth, no one would have survived. So the map is probably wrong. The person who wrote it, the book, is probably writing it with preconceived notions of the universe. So how would they... Well, you've got to bear in mind, this map hasn't just been randomly created. It's the first thing in the Warcraft Chronicles. It will have been checked by people who are authorised to... Well, head of the story writing, basically. It may have... I haven't got the... It's in the next room. But it may even say in there who produced it. But whoever produced it, it will have been checked. It's just I don't know that the positions on it are relevant. They may not be. Like, for example, you might imagine that maybe nature and life and order should be up here, and disorder and death down here. Maybe that would make more sense. that would then have allowed them to have had, you know, if they'd moved death over there and disorder down there, then it'd all be fine, wouldn't it? Decay, I don't know, it's all very weird. Isn't the crash ship in Outland the same way up? Well, it's stuck in the ground again, yes. They have a bit of a problem with landing, certainly, yes. It could look like the elements of the map are meant to go around in a counterclockwise circle, like light. No. Again, there is text as well to explain it. Light and shadow are the fundamental forces. All of the forces, it says, are made up of a combination of light and shadow. So light and shadow are definitely separate in this regard. It's not 6 forces as such. They are 6 cosmic forces, but 4 of them are not elemental. You know, light and shadow are the only, you know, fundamental forces. It specifically says that. And then the others are a combination of the two. Not necessarily in equal quantities. But just if the light charged Illidan, then everyone would see the light as being good. But we know from that cinematic that the light is not all good. Yes, possibly. But it depends what it did to Illidan. The Chronicles of the book is probably written by an in-game character and they present it that way. No, it's not. No. It's not written in that sort of narrative. It's written very documentary style, like as if you're reading like a history of whatever. Because people have tried that before. It doesn't read at all like that. It looks to have those two prominent. Maybe it needs rotating 90 degrees. I'll cover my face up. I'm not doing that. But anyway, there we go. That's something I have to refer to all the time whenever we're talking about these cosmic forces. It's a very nice thing. It's just I don't necessarily know what it means. That's why you have to read. It's not like loads of pages. It's like another 2 or 3 pages to give you an overview. It's just that some of the things in it you now wonder if they're still true, given the way certain storylines have gone. Just because it's written in a documentary style doesn't mean it's not written by a historian from Azeroth looking at the lore. Right, okay, so answer me this. How does anyone from Azeroth get to talk about events before even the Titans were born? Where would they get that information from? What intelligence has told them about the start of the universe in Warcraft? Looks like cogs in a clock. No. No cogs. Don't you go bringing gnomes into this. Accepted myths and legend. No, it's written as fact, as truth. There are lots of events in the Warcraft Chronicles that were not observed by anyone who would have written them down. Because the other thing as well is Blizzard specifically in the foreword specifically says this is the lore, we're writing it all down now. Now, if they were then going to try a few years later and say, joke's on you, it was written by some drunkard in a pub and they didn't know what they were talking about, we've actually just changed it all and that's our reasoning, that would be a massive screw you, because they've specifically said in the start of this book, this is them explaining the lore. This is it. As is. Exactly as is. You know, it says that in the, not as in the forward, as I say, at the start. I'm half-minded to go and get it now just to read some things out, but never mind. Like religion, a Christian will say the Bible is fact. I'm a Christian. I'm not saying everything the Bible is fact. Because that is a case of someone chronicling something that they may not fully understand. Whereas this isn't. This isn't supposed to be written by a person. What happens if it was written from a Titan's perspective? Bloody big sheet of paper they'd need. Where are they getting that from? But it's not. Because it chronicles events before the Titans. The Titans weren't there at the start. They were there fairly early to the start of the main narrative. You say, come let us make man in our image, but that's not actually, like, it's not in the Gospels, that. That's just someone making something up. Because again, how would anyone write down what God had said? They wouldn't. Except, of course, when apparently he tried to talk to Moses. And sort of Abraham. But that didn't end well. But it's not. It says specifically at the start, it says that they have written down the... oh, he has a Twitter thing. I'll have to show you in a minute. It's hilarious. They say this is the law. That's all there is to it. Blizzard have said that. Chris Metzen has promised us it's the law. Chris Metzen does not tell lies. He may cause trouble now and then, but he doesn't tell lies. What happens if Chronicles are written by us when all the adventures are finished? But they're not, are they? Because as soon as we got onto Chronicles 3, when it starts to tell the events of World of Warcraft, it starts being a bit playing fast and loose with which faction killed which bosses. Well, I have to say, when I was reading about apparently the Horde were defeating certain raid bosses, when I am pretty bloody sure that I killed them, thank you very much, and my Alliance Guild. So I'm not, you know, now that they're into World of Warcraft stuff, it's all getting a bit weird. Zalath states that even the Zalath is also, you know who Zalath is. Not entirely a reliable witness, but let's read this. States that even the Titans didn't understand the Void. And how would Zalath know this? How would they know this? This is not right. I'm going to get it. I'll be back in 1 second. Well, maybe half a minute. Right. Book. So, I'm back. That was quick. Right. We're going to have a story time now. Yes, you're actually making me read, and it's supposed to be my holiday. Right, where's the relevant bit? Oh, God, he waffles on a lot, this Chris Metzen fella. Ultimately, this grand and super nerdy editorial undertaking gives us an amazing perspective on Warcraft's recurring themes and conflicts. Okay, so it's an editorial, says quite clearly there. It's from this top-down view that we can more clearly see the dangerous yet glorious horizons ahead, and even in the face of all this history, I'm fairly certain that blah, 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 rubbish. Okay? So this is it. And then, what we were actually talking about, the forces. Where was it talking about it? Where does it start? Here we go. Before life began, before the cosmos took shape, there was light and there was void. Unfettered by the confines of time and space, the light swelled across all existence in the form of a boundless prismatic sea. Great torrents of living energy flitted through its mirrored depths, their movements conjuring a symphony of joy and hope. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Yet as it expanded, some of its energies faded and dimmed, leaving behind pockets of cold nothingness. From the absence of light in these spaces, a new power coalesced and came to be. So actually the light created the void. In the beginning, there was just the light. This power was the void, a dark and vampiric force driven to devour all energy, to twist creation inward to feed upon itself. The void quickly grew and spread its influence, moving against the flowing waves of light. The mounting tension between these two opposing yet inseparable energies eventually ignited a series of catastrophic explosions, rupturing the fabric of creation and birthing a new realm into existence. At that moment, the physical universe was born. Anyway, I am alternately like Russell Crowe, John Goodman, and someone else whose name I can't remember, apparently. The Titans came way after. I mean, you know, they get onto them fairly quickly. They don't hang about because, you know, it's supposed to be written about it's like Azeroth, really. So after Origins, you've then got the Titans and the Ordering of the Universe. Then you've got the Void Lords and the Birth of the Old Gods, Rise of Demons. Sargeras and Agrimar, the Will of the Void. That's when Sargeras goes a little bit mad. Then you've got Old Gods, Cthulhu, sort of, without his giant eye. Then Primordial Azeroth, Reign of the Elements, Coming of the Old Gods, Discovery of Azeroth, Wrath of the Titan Forged. Big elemental battles. Very nice, very nice. I like looking at the art in these things. That's why I quite like getting the new Warhammer books, actually. They have very nice art in it as well. Anyway, where are we? I'm missing something. What have I missed? Would be cool if the lore said Horde and Alliance killed X-Boss, depending on who gets world first. The problem then is there's going to come a point where the Alliance don't kill anything. So I don't really think they should do that, if I'm going to be completely honest. I'm also, could you imagine a scenario where they have to describe how Jaina was chased away from the tower in Zuldazar by the Alliance? I mean, obviously this time, obviously the Horde did get the Jaina world first, but imagine if it were not. Imagine if an Alliance guild had done it. That would be a bit mad. Yeah, at the moment, let's be realistic. There may never be another Alliance world first. There may never be another one. How powerful is Bunsamdi? Well, I suspect we're going to find out during the course of this expansion. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, where he's supposed to be, his, you know, I mean, the lower in general, some lower, I mean, basically lower are just anything that trolls revere. So it includes wild gods, but there's other things as well. Obviously, Bunsamdi is not a wild god. He's powerful enough to be able to, I mean, he's more, like, if you think about it, in terms of his shepherding of souls and things like that, you know, it puts him in many ways, you would think, on a direct path with the likes of the Lich King, but he seems to be more powerful than the Lich King. And also, how do you assess power when they're not directly, like, fighting against something? But he does seem to be on, like, almost, well, certainly demigod at least status. It would still be Horde because they race changed, right? Yes. Well, yeah, but you can't say in Alliance, what you're going to say in the Chronicles. This Alliance force came along, someone dumped some goblin costumes onto them, they saw Jaina and thought, oh, we're goblins, oh, we need to fight her. Oh, that would be weird. I'm pretty sure it's still going to be the Horde doing it. That still works since the Alliance are reliving what the Horde champions did. Yeah, but the Horde champions did it. So that's what will be written in the Warcraft Chronicles. They're not going to add a little, like, epilogue where they say, oh, and then some Alliance heroes came along and looked into a scrying pool to see how the Horde champions chased off Jaina. He grows in power with the number of souls he has under his charge, yes. Seems it follows Shintoism. The larger the number of souls the being has or consumed, the more powerful it becomes. Taint of Gahoon drove the Alliance raid temporarily insane. It's frankly having to fight side by side with gnomes. The old gods was just an excuse so they didn't have to hurt their feelings. I keep trying to explain to everyone that gnomes don't have feelings. I don't know what they're worried about. Did it have that in here, actually, by the way? Because that's something we're going to be subjected to soon, isn't it? Bloody gnomes, the whole land of the gnomes. And, of course, I was at least hoping it'd be proper mechanical gnomes. You know, like in TBC where we had the mechanical gnomes. But it's not, is it? They're partly flesh and partly mechanical. So, they're at least going to be half annoying. Absolutely dreadful. Cannot imagine what they were thinking. I mean, this is another thing. Like, people keep talking about another old god. But this is another, the Warcraft Chronicles, which is supposed to be the final word. And look, it's got it all in there. It's got all the elemental lords and the old gods and their little dominions. They can't go sneaking another one into it. Gnomes are just a sack of mucus and flesh. I'm not really sure. But they're certainly... I can't believe I'm going to have to do a whole bloody zone with them. And if I was like Alliance, I'd have to get quests from the bloody gnomes as well. What is this? Oh, sorry. Who is Brunsamdi's boss? Well, that is another thing. I can't even imagine, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. Or is he referring to his missus? I don't really think he's the sort of person who is otherwise encumbered. So, but who Brunsamdi's boss is, I mean, and Zoth would be an obvious one, but that's just too obvious. That's too obvious. It's not happening. I don't think so. I wouldn't put it past them that it'll never be revealed either. You try and think, if it's supposed to be someone who's already revealed in the lore, because there's no guarantee it is, then you start to wonder. You wonder. Because there's an awful lot at the moment of speculation about the nature of a loon, isn't there? And you start to wonder what a loon is, and if maybe a loon is Brunsamdi's boss. When does this new zone come out? It's in 8.2. Yes, 8.2. So not the next content patch, the one after, which I suppose would be round about May, maybe late April. End of April, early May, maybe, I guess. I need to do a video on the WoW Chronicles for us all, and whenever this topic comes up, you can just tell us to watch it again. Yeah, maybe I should. But, I mean, there's plenty of other people do lore videos, though. I mean, I do lore videos when I want to speculate on something. I don't do them as, like, guides or anything, because there are better people than me to do those. If it's in June, you can just skip it and do the ESO expansion. Now, I wouldn't skip it. I would do it eventually, not necessarily on the first day it comes out. No, I strongly suspect it'll be late April, early May. How can Zandalari trolls be paladins? Because they followers of the light. They wanted access to the light, and their link to the light was broken off. They wanted another one. Lady Liadrin, I'm sure, has had a hand in it. She seems to have a hand in all sorts of things. I would ordinarily approve, but she wears those ridiculous shoulders. Do I think all Titans are made up from Arcane? Yes. Now, well, okay, so if you talk about Sargeras, there is a... Okay, you could argue that he became corrupted with the Fel through his work with the demons. So if you're saying, are Titans immutable? Not necessarily. It is possible that the Titans can change their nature. You know, maybe, I mean, the Burning Legion is here. That looks very much to me like Sargeras. It could well be that Sargeras changed from a being of the arcane to a being of fel. That, you know, we no one's saying that it's everything's stuck in a particular, you know, thing. I mean, put it this way, you would probably describe the Lich King as a necromantic being, and yet used to be an orc and a human and another human and some hideous conglomeration, which would have put them somewhere else. Reality in the middle. maybe they're all Earth, something. I don't know. Wouldn't have been there anyway. So yeah, I mean, there's certainly a strong suggestion that you can change what sort of cosmic force you're drawn from, I guess. One of the NPCs in Nazmir says even that Fulbun Samdu will be brought under Gahun's control. Well, they were wrong about that, weren't they? They don't have a plan for the story, so character strength is always arbitrary. Well, they don't have a detailed plan for the story, I would at least say. I think they have a back of the fag packet written down idea several years in advance. But I think that's about it. Be interested to see if a creature of flesh absorbs enough void if it evolved into an old god and loses their so-called mortal morality. If that were true, do you not think that maybe Shadow Priests and Warlocks would have done it by now? What about Gul'dan? He didn't turn into an old god. He was absorbing it for a fair old time. Cho'Gall? He hasn't turned into an old god. He's become corrupted, of course, but not actually turned into an old god. Yogg-Saron. I am now of the view that Yogg-Saron's dead, along with Cthulhu. Argus seems older than the other Titans because he describes the world forming around him, so it seems he became a Titan. Oh, yeah, there's a strong suggestion of that, but not necessarily that he is older than the other Titans. You know, the suggestion is that he was sort of forged by Sargeras and therefore after the other Titans. But I don't think it might not. I think Argus might be in Chronicles 2. So I'm not going to go and get another bloody book. What is dead may never die. Never mind that. Considering picking up BFA, how is the quality of lore compared to that of Legion? Depends what you mean by quality. I think the story is engaging. I think it's going to get a damn sight more engaging very soon, though. I think the big story is a bit of a slow burner, and it's coming into its own in the next few months. However, certain technical aspects of the story writing I have had to take issue with. But in general terms, I would say the quality of like the interest of it. It's just that the real interest is to come. It's like baiting us at the moment. That's my view anyway. Obviously, it's subjective. You think the lore is engaging outside of the game? Well, apart from that last book where that woman Christy Golden, allowed a gnome to live. After leaving it in the balance, you know, it's like, oh, did the gnome die or not? I sort of knew the gnome didn't die because she seems too soft to me. And then we find out it didn't die. My take on the Fermi paradox. What sort of channel have I done now? I know I want to do one at some point. No, got to be good. Got to discuss Warcraft stuff. But yeah, no, I think it's, in terms of the quality, it's probably the same quality as Legion. It's just there's a few. Whereas with Legion, I didn't go through it going, hang on a minute, the way that character's behaved doesn't make sense, apart from Jaina. In this one, there's a number of times where I've thought characters didn't behave as you would really expect them to. How would I react if I woke up in Azeroth as a gnome? Well, whereabouts in Azeroth? Where would I be? I mean, if I wake up in Ironforge, it's quite easy. I walk outside, walk slightly to the north, and then jump off the mountain. It all depends on where I wake up. It's not Jaina's mood swings that were the thing I took exception to in Legion. It's the fact that she buggered off, was never seen at all throughout Legion, and then we are supposed to believe that she was off fighting demons in her own way. No, she wasn't. She's the most powerful mage, more powerful than Khadgar, I contend. The most powerful mage on Azeroth. And she was nowhere. We were always where the action was. Absolutely, 100% of the time. We were where the action was. She was nowhere. So that's an absolute nonsense. I wouldn't need a mount and just find the closest chair or something. Well, there you go. Unfortunately, they have an annoying habit of bouncing. Fighting her own demon now. She's described as having fought the Burning Legion in her own way, which is a load of shit. Those demons that account for her other 5 personalities. Yeah. I think I do think they have messed up her character, but I think it's an inevitable consequence of keep dropping her into the story when they need her and then taking her out, but not really thinking about what she's up to until before the next time you bring her back. And that's ultimately the problem. It's like Rathian. If they ever bring Rathian back, the inevitable question would be, where the bloody hell was he when Azeroth was under the most fearsome pressure? Not just now in BFA, but in Legion as well. He was nowhere to be seen. They'll come up with some other rubbish reason for that as well. She was brooding somewhere trying to campaign that they covered her chest. Well, if they just said that, I'd buy that, no problem. Yeah, of course. No issue there. Especially as one of the zones in the Broken Isles was a bit cold. You know, she needs to wrap up warm. I understand. If they'd have just said that, I'd have been perfectly happy. Not good at off-screen development. Yeah, there's no time. They spend no time at all on off-screen development. It's absolute madness. They've made her a permanent figure now that she's a Lord Admiral. Have they? Have they? Maybe. Maybe not. No one's permanent. Apart from Sylvanas. What? She was fighting an even greater evil? No, she wasn't. She wasn't doing anything. Jaina and Rathian were defending Azeroth's other side. Doesn't have another side. We've seen it all. If they even attempt to put a new supercontinent in, it would just make no sense at all. Garrosh is morally grey. Garrosh is dead. He's worm food. Jaina may have been fighting the Legion, however they were in her head. No secret that she's completely mad. I thought you were going to pull the Jaina is a Dreadlord thing again there. Defeating the Dreadlord within. Jaina will bugger off next expansion. She may not go next expansion because if the next expansion is another Lich King expansion, which it could well be, then obviously Jaina has a natural role to play there as well. But I wouldn't regard her as being permanent. Jaina was playing Hearthstone for the last 5 years. Is that why she's in a bad mood? Where is Medivh? He's dead as well. They're all dead. He used to have a grave outside Karazhan, but I think they've removed it now. Which is ominous enough. Or is it still there? I don't think it's still there anymore, is it? I'm not sure. Next to his mum. In reality, she was shooting arcane missiles at a tree. Now, I mean, you know, you could have told me she was in Darnassus shooting the squirrels, because that's what I used to do years ago when I was a bit bored on my Frost Mage. I would just run around Darnassus ice-lancing the squirrels. She could have been doing that. Again, I would have no issue. If Blizzard had just said that, she's been spending the last couple of years in Darnassus, you know, blasting squirrels, I would have no complaints at all. You would laugh if Garrosh was Bunsamdi's boss. No, he's dead. Is Saurfang going to split off into a new faction with Bane? No. Saurfang is... no. Saurfang and Sylvanas are not going to be leaders of the Horde by the end of this expansion. If the next expansion is Lich King, you need to get on now. It will take me a year to level a DK. She'll stay off screening in KT for 9.0 while the players that quested through Kata content and was somehow a pivotal part of their Alliance Kulturas Alliance Union is going to go off an adventure. Medivh is said to still be alive. He was the prophet in Warcraft 3. Yeah, but he's... Yes, he was. But he also said he was going to pass into legend. Wasn't Medivh's ghost or visage in the tower telling Khadgar that he needs to take the mantle of the Guardian? No. That was a Dreadlord disguised as Medivh's spirit. Didn't you watch the end of it? It's only a few minutes, come on. You'd like to see more of her mother. She seems more interesting than half the other characters. I don't know. Potentially. My favourite character is still Flynn, though. Flynn and Bunsamdi, I would say, are my favourite characters of this expansion. It sometimes changes around. I think there's a few. To be fair, I think there's a few interesting characters in this expansion. Ever seen The Adventures of Associate Professor Whom? Oh, yes. No, yes. WoW Machinima from years ago. If you mean that, then I think, yes, I did. But not for many years. I don't know whether they're still doing anything. You were getting takeaway and pretending to do coursework. What? Pretending to do coursework. Get on with it, you lazy student. God, if my students are not getting on with their coursework this week, I shall go mad at them. The Worgen DK... Oh, in that case, no, I'm thinking of something else. The Worgen DK, they used to explain the timeline up to MOP. Until, in that case, no. I obviously haven't. Legion came out the month you started university. Thank goodness first grades don't matter. First year grades don't matter. But the learning matters. You need the first year to be able to do well in the second year. Great numpty. Not that I treated it any differently, but then that's because that's why I ended up making a right arse of it in the end. Well, I got out of it in the end, I suppose. Yes. What are you learning, for goodness sake, that doesn't actually build on? Don't tell me you're doing media studies. Do I remember when we were able to skin Wargers in Darkshire? No, because I was never able to skin them. Because I was never a skinner. However, I'm quite happy to accept that we could skin them. We could certainly skin Yetis, I remember that. Computer science. Well, you're not going to tell me that the stuff you're learning the first year is not going to be relevant next year. I shall potentially Google it later then if I remember. What was I looking for again? Oh no. It's useless. You wasted 9 grand. It's all on YouTube for free. Where? Oh my god. Where are you doing this degree? Can't believe this. My first year I was taught by someone who had a Nobel Prize. And actually, one of the lecturers who was doing the... what was she doing with us? It involved laser physics, because I remember she brought in a laser and cut through an orange one time. She's the head of the whole place now. But it didn't cost us 9 grand a year. In fact, we actually got paid to go there. We got a grant. We got our fees paid and a grant. Is Medivh still alive? I don't believe so. Some people saying otherwise. Without any evidence either way, can't really say, but I do not believe so. He said in Warcraft 3 that he was going to pass into Legend, which strongly suggests that if he is, that he's lying. I suppose he could have just meant that he was just going to go off and be a hermit somewhere. We shall see. Maybe he is, you know, someone we know quite well in disguise again. You thought he was in a magical energy vortex coma. I don't know. I don't know. Everybody lies. No, they don't. Medivh was always fairly honest. He just got corrupted a tiny little bit, that's all. Wasn't his fault. It's his mother being a bit careless and a bit, you know, arrogant. Huh. Anyway, aren't you keeping up with the times? There's no such thing as a lie these days. There are alternative facts. Need to get with the times. We're in the 21st century now. People need to start trying that actually when they get caught out for having misrepresented certain facts on their CVs. If a half-truth is a lie, doesn't that make all our truths lies? No, a half-truth isn't a lie. A half-truth, surely, is where you tell, when you say something that is absolutely true, you just don't give the piece of information that would have been useful. And it is therefore can be misleading, but it's not actually a lie. It's what some people call a lie by omission, but it's not actually a lie. People just need to ask clearer questions. That's all. The best lies are those closest to the truth. Well, there was a saying from Doctor Who. For a lie to work, it must be shrouded in truth. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it just has to be believable. Some people will believe the most ridiculous things. Say half-truths are scummy, but the problem is, let's say you're a kid and you've been up to no good and your dad asks you about it or something like that. You're obviously not going to volunteer all the information they require. You will answer them truthfully. If they don't ask the right question, it's not your fault. You're not going to drop yourself in the shit just for no reason. What's my favourite planet or moon, not counting the Earth? Well, I'd be far more interested in the satellites, I have to say. I refuse to call it moons because there's one moon. So, but my favourite, I suppose, would be between maybe Titan or Europa. Basically because they may be good places to try and find life. You met a flat earther at work. What work now? Where do you work? You've already told me you're doing a degree on YouTube. Where do you work that has a flat earther at it? I assume this is a part-time studenty job. No. Oh, Morrison's. Oh, well, you know, enough said, doesn't matter. Yes, I guess you're in your third year because you talked about your first 2 years. But yes. Okay, well, if it's just a part-time job, you've only got to put up with it for so long. And then you can go and work with intelligent people, maybe. The whole flat earth thing was a joke started on 4chan. I think it goes before... If we're going to be honest, it existed before 4chan. Because I specifically remember a reference to flat earthers in the 1974 Doctor Who story Robot. And that was before the internet. I don't know how long the concept has been going on, but it's been going on since at least 1974. I know that for certain. I don't think we can blame America for this one, to be fair. I think for some things, to be fair to America, they do cop a lot of the blame because at the end of the day, if you're going to make money from flat earthers, the best place to do it will be in America because of two things. First of all, they've got a bloody big population. They've got, well, some of them have got reasonable disposable income, and they don't mind driving from one end of this vast country to the other to attend a convention. So, you know, and of course that's the entrepreneurial spirit of America as well, isn't it? Because half of so-called flat earthers, I guarantee, I absolutely guarantee, are not actually flat earthers. They're just cashing in. If I had no scruples, I've said this before, haven't I? If I had no scruples, I would absolutely make a conspiracy theory channel. I reckon it'd do amazingly. Absolutely amazingly. So easy as well. Because the people that you're attracting are the people who never fact check. And if someone presents a fact, they can't recognise it as a fact. Be an absolute doddle. You'd never have to think anything through. You just come up with some mad thing. It'd be so easy. Damn my morality. Its recent popularisation was fueled by 4chan. Well, I can't speak for that. Most of our ancestors were flat earthers at some point. I'm not sure our ancestors were actually that dumb. It's a bit like this idea that the earth was flat. People thought, oh, you know, we had this thing. People thought the earth was flat. And then we had the Renaissance. Didn't work like that. We knew that the Earth was a globe for millennia. No one thought it was flat. And then all of a sudden, the Spanish went, hang on a minute, the Earth's flat. And everyone went, no, it's not. And then they tortured everyone else until everyone else said, all right, it's flat, bloody hell, leave me alone. And then that carried on until the Renaissance. Has Doctor Who always been cheeky? No, it was quite dark to begin with. The first few stories of Doctor Who were actually quite dark. No, it hasn't always been cheeky. I think it got like it started probably during Hartnell's time, but then probably Pat Troughton was the one who took it off because he looked like a clown anyway. So they just went for it then. IQ 3 points lower than Europe. Enough. We don't know that. And also, you've got to remember, you don't have standardised IQ tests anyway. An IQ test in America is not the same as an IQ test in Britain or Germany or France, something like that. Because if you do an IQ... I've done an IQ test many years ago, and there's questions in there that assume a certain level of cultural knowledge. Like, for example, if you're answering a question and it involves a dime... Well, if you don't know what a dime is, you can't answer the question. It's not because you're not intelligent, because you don't know what a bloody dime is. And you get things like that. Obviously not in mine. Make Azeroth great again, behave. The way we make Azeroth great again is by, one, not letting people stick swords in her, and two, not digging into the wound when we have done. So I don't think we're really on the same page there in terms of the denizens of Azeroth. Anyway, we seem to be getting into politics again now. And we have run out of time, so I'll just see if there's any more Warcraft little things, and then we're going to be done for another week. Azeroth seems pretty flat. What are you on about? There's that's the other thing. It's not flat. It's mountainous. It's not even level. If it were flat, people wouldn't be crying out for flying. It's because it's not flat we want flying, so we can get around more quickly. But anyway, that is a sort of Azeroth question, I suppose, at the end of it. Oh, last one, go on then. You're surprised Gallywix hasn't stolen the Draenei ship and found that dead Titan Sargeras killed and started mining it. Maybe he doesn't know about it yet. Maybe he doesn't know yet. But anyway, we shall call it a day there. Thank you very much for coming on, everyone. And we're back on again next week, of course. And so until next time, I'll see you later.